I would like to call Independent School District 721 to order. And I'll please note that Leo Giesen is not present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, my chair is not wheeling. We have some spotlight of successes, so, do you want to?
Yep, we'll have
Perfect.
Mr. Skogerbo, our activities director, come up and he'll introduce them.
And start with Henry and Caden. Why don't you come up here quickly? I have Henry Lundeen and Caden Anderson, the two leads in our most recent fall musical, The Wedding Singer. Caden is a sophomore. Henry is a senior. Both did an outstanding job. If you were able to make the show, saw a couple of extremely talented kids, and they did a great job entertaining our public over the 2 weekends and the 5 shows, and really did an outstanding job. So Caden and Henry, I don't know if you guys have anything you want to say or sing.
I'd just like to say it was a great experience. You know, I loved all the people that were in it. I loved the director. I've been doing theater for years, and I thought that this was great. I do wish, though, that we would have more funding for theater in general. I don't know if you guys have heard this idea before. I'm in emotion, and I think if we get maybe even like half the amount of money that a typical sport would get, then I think it would be more possible for us to get, you know, to win those trophies that we want. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right.
I mean, I love it all, like this community and this, you know, all this theater stuff has been amazing for me. I just know that there are some people that are itching to do more and itching to, you know, win and go somewhere with that stuff, and I want to see that possibility, you know, come true.
All right. And Henry, what are your plans for next year? Do you know yet?
Sorry?
Your plans for next year?
Oh, next
Post-secondary?
year? Yeah, I've been accepted to multiple colleges. I want to pursue a degree in music somehow. I want to, you know, study music theory. I want to, you know, spread out there, you know. Just want to more experience and.
Great. Caden, how's school going, and what was your favorite part about the musical?
I really love the community and the art. Very welcoming. I've made like friends that I'll definitely have for a very long time.
All right. All right. Well, I'll talk to Mr. Skogerville about the budget. But we are committed to the fine arts and athletics. They're a very important part of a student's life, daily life at the school, and obviously, like you said, Henry, how it's going to benefit you for years to come. So I want to thank you guys. We got something for you, a little gift here, and then if we can get a picture with Mr. Skogerville, Patrick.
In the back of the paper, the last one.
Oh,
I
great.
can see you in the back of it.
Okay, and secondly, Peyton Schieffer, if she could come up. Peyton was an extremely successful swimmer for us on our best team we've ever had at New Prague. And the best part, Peyton qualified for 2 individual events, and she also qualified in a relay for the state meet this couple weeks ago. She finished second in the 100 fly. And she finished 6th in the 200 individual medley. And like I said, they also qualified in the medley relay. They did not place, but to place 2nd and 6th, it's the first time this has happened. And you know, we were close. Moving to Class A was a big move for us. And the best part is, you know, we had great senior leadership and whatnot, but we also have a great bunch of young girls coming up, Peyton only being a sophomore. So we're excited. She has a lot of school records, a lot of pool records, and we're excited for the future for Peyton. And you know, I don't know if you have anything you want to say. I told her earlier today she had to keep her speech down within 5 minutes, and I think she almost wouldn't have showed up if that was the case. So. But yeah, Peyton, outstanding job this year, and look forward to watching her the next 2 years.
And Peyton, you want to just talk about the amount of training, you know, practice you do in the off-season, stuff like that, when you got started in swimming?
So over the summer, I would do doubles practices. I'd do 2 hours in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. I would also do dry land during the day. So dry land's basically just like working out on land, but we call it dry land because water. But during high school season, I do 2 hours and then dry land on Thursday.
Okay. And what was prospects for the team look like next year? What does the team look like for next year?
Really good. I'm excited. There's a lot of, like you said, a lot of young girls, like Taylor Bassett. She'll be a freshman. Ella, she's also a sophomore. Yeah, we're losing a lot of seniors this year, but.
All right. Well, this is awesome. I was just seeing the girls swimming and diving program, the improvement from year to year, girls being involved in club swimming, and then obviously the facilities we have here, combining those two things, and great kids like herself, the success is really neat to see. So, yeah, wish you the best. It's also exciting right now. You got a plug in for boys swimming and diving. We've started that this year for the first year. So
First home meet tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. All right.
Against Red Wings, so we're excited about that.
Okay. Well, Pate, go ahead.
I was just curious, so do you guys think you could get your swimming suits on and we can come down after the meeting and you can show
No.
us how that's...
I've seen her swim a lot of times, and there's no way.
You're not keeping up to that?
No, I would not keep up to that. So,
Well, thank you so much. Why don't you come up here? And
All right. Well, good. Congratulations to all of you. All right. Approval for the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 6-0. Motion for the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 6-0. Board committee reports. Policy, nothing.
Right.
Southwest Metro, nothing.
We take the month off.
Okay. Special ed CPAC.
No meeting scheduled.
Community ed.
No.
Wellness.
No.
Early childhood.
Yeah, we haven't been meeting, but Mary Bartuszczyk sent me some updates on some programs that I'd like to talk about. For early childhood, the winter spring brochures were mailed out and registration begins on Wednesday. The Let's Play Saturdays will return Saturday mornings, 9 to 11 in the CEC gym for families with children ages birth to 5 years old, and this is free. And it's a wonderful opportunity for families with small children to participate in motor activities. Preschool, there are 332 students enrolled, and transportation is used by 56 students, and this is for students that are at daycare or have no other way to get there. And there is a monthly fee, but it's eligible students receive financial assistance. and scholarships are awarded on financial need. 37 of the students that attend preschool are special ed students. And early childhood screening during the 2020-2021 school year, the district screened 316 children ages 3 to 5, and that's the most they have ever screened in 1 year. Screening occurs on Thursday afternoons at the CEC, and parents can set up appointments online or they can call the office.
Great. Wow. Okay, Fitness and Aquatic Center.
Yeah, we had a meeting a few weeks back. We spent most of the meeting discussing budget and the revised budget that we had mid-year. Enrollment or membership is up considerably from what original budget was, so we had some positive improvement there. However, there has been some, we did increase some of the expenses as well, just with utilities and gas and all that kind of thing. Seeing increases and rates adjustments starting on the new year. So there was some pullback on some of those expenses, but overall a positive a budget adjustment. So otherwise things are going well, and nothing much else to report from the Fitness and Aquatic Center.
Great.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to know the answer, but Tim will, I know. What year did the pool open? When did we open that?
2017. June of 2017.
So the girls' team would have competed for 4 years now because you didn't have it in
Here,
2020?
we used to go to Montgomery's pool, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
But-
That's right, they did have a
But going
team for
here drove the numbers up, and then
Right.
the importance of the swim club too.
that. Mhm.
It's, if you have a good feeder program and facilities, and obviously we have good coaches, it makes a difference.
Were they able to compete in 2020 because of COVID or not? I can't remember.
Oh, gosh, I got COVID fog.
Can't remember.
I can't remember.
That's okay. I was just curious.
Last year you're talking about?
Yeah, they were.
Last year they
were,
competed.
Yeah. Yep. They just had reduced amount of people that could go to the meets and things.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, that's all I got. Thanks.
We will move into good news and update from our superintendent.
A lot of good news. No, we got a band concert tonight. I'll be going to after our board meeting tonight. So their holiday band concert is tonight. Choir concert is next Monday, so a week from today. So those will be two events we're looking forward to. What I also have here is a certificate from the Minnesota School Board Association. The certificate is honoring Matthew Goldaddy for completing the Minnesota School Board Association Leadership Development Program. It's been accomplished by Matthew by successfully attending the Leadership Workshop Series phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I know the MSBA and we also appreciate his effort and dedication for going through this, and it's obviously end result is good for kids here. So we appreciate his participation in this, and I'm going to award him with the certificate right now. So thank you much, Matt.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's about it. We didn't have school on Friday due to weather.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It was a great decision.
It was a great decision. All right. So we are to approval of strategic plan roadmap.
Good evening, School Board and Superintendent Dittburner. Thank you for having us here tonight. To my right is Mr. Ray Queener, who is the gentleman who has been working with our school district for well over a year now. I'd like to thank the following stakeholders who have been part of the strategic plan. So tonight, the purpose for us to come here, and Ray will explain that, but is for the approval of our strategic plan and the work that we have completed so far. But it is very important that we do recognize a number of different groups who have been part of the strategic plan. It's a very comprehensive plan, starting with all of our administrators, teachers, parents, students, support staff, and last but not least, community members, which provided us a very really comprehensive historical perspective of the strategic plan. So I'd like to thank all of those folks for being part of the collection of the data, the stories, the information, what their thoughts were on the New Prague School District, and really helped to move us forward as we went through the strategic plan. There's a number of parts to it, and Ray will kind of explain those a little bit. And then maybe right at the end afterwards, if Ray doesn't talk about that, it'll just kind of be how I can really fill in a little bit about how we will be using the strategic plan in the future and the importance of it. So at this time, we'll ask Ray to kind of just take us through a little bit, and then we'll ask for an approval after that.
Good evening. Thanks again for having me with you. As Tony mentioned, over a year ago we started the process, and it's gone fast and slow as we've navigated all the pandemics and trials and tribulations. I think the district should be commended for going through a process at any time, but to continue through the pandemic and have such commitment from your staff and your students and stakeholders to be engaged in the process really speaks highly of, I think, the school district. Our process is broken down into 3 parts. We've talked about this before, so I won't go through all the details, but we begin by assessing the current reality. So we did a story wall, we looked back over the time, painted a picture of the district. We did a present day analysis, we call it an environmental scan. And tell us what we're doing now, where are things at. Then we moved to setting the vision, that's phase 2. That included getting stakeholders involved and developing the desired daily experience for students, families, and staff, as well as a classroom theory of action. And then once we had that vision, we talked about how we would measure it with the district vision card. And finally we got to mapping out the operational plan of the work that the district's going to embark upon moving forward from an administrative level. Tonight, what you are asked to act on is the strategic roadmap, which is the governance portion of this process, which includes a mission, vision, core values, and strategic directives. After the business meeting, we'll continue our work mapping out a 3-year governance work plan for the school board. And then we have one more session with the board where we take a look at all your practices, structures, workflows, just to make sure that everything's in alignment for moving the plan forward. So it's been a very comprehensive process. The thing that I know the district was interested in is implementing a system of continuous planning versus doing the episodic planning every 3 to 5 years. So the system's in place, the team has the tools, and they can continue to carry the process forward with up-to-date plans every single year. And it maximizes the resources that are expended on moving us to this point as well as moving forward. So I really enjoyed the process, great folks to work with. Tony and Marn have been phenomenal to organize on this end of the district, and the participation was awesome. So, and my favorite thing was with the students. Not having been in the classroom for 20-some years, it was fun to get to work with students and hear their perspectives. And I've got one young lady, I think she was a 6th or 7th grader, that I know is going places, so I'll have to keep tabs on her because she was phenomenal to lead and work with. So any questions on the process or where we're at for me?
Anyone?
If there are no questions at this time, we would like to ask for an approval for for the roadmap of this district strategic plan.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just make a comment too. I mean, Ray's done a fabulous job with Tony and Martin and other people on that, like Tony had mentioned. It was one of those things too, like Ray was saying, you know, we could have put it on hold and used the pandemic as an excuse to not move forward. But again, I think our philosophy as a board, we've been moving, we're trying to keep things as normal as possible, because you go standstill, you're going to regress as a district. And I think it's very important we move forward, and this strategic plan was very important for our district to get in place as we move forward here. So I want to thank you guys for doing that. Did a wonderful job, and it's really going to be a benefit to our district.
All right. So we have world's best workforce.
So each year, all the way back to, I believe, 2013, we bring the world's best workforce to you as a board to just provide information, and that's something also that we do take action on. And this year is no different. So Martin and I are just going to quickly go through the world's best workforce, the goals, where we're at, explanation a little bit of the statute. You can see on the screen the school board responsibility, and it's number one is very specific to tonight with Ray here, and that's the strategic plan. So those two things go together. And that's a really important thing. It's also something that we publish online. We put information in our annual report, and the world's best workforce is something that we work each year with the Department of Education and continuing to work on our goals for our school district each year. With that being said, here are the 5 areas that we will go through tonight and provide data on how we as a school measure the data and also where we kind of landed. And last but not least, just to kind of review a little bit, due to the pandemic, which Mr. Dittburner did talk about, we continued to keep doing the very best that we could. Things were put on hold for the 2020. That's why you see in 2019 we had kids here, but the MCAs were not taken in 2019, therefore there was no data in 2020. The Department of Education asked us to use this year's goals in 2019 data, which is a little bit backwards.
2019 goals and 2021 data.
Thank you, Marin. Yes, thank you. So very inconsistent with our educational model, and you'll kind of see that as we go through the goals. But we're very happy and excited to be back in school the way we are today, having spent the day out at Eagleview today and seeing the teachers, and a full day of teaching in person is really exciting to see. And I know that our scores in the MCAs will definitely prove that this year.
All right, so last week when our district advisory met, we did review goals and results with them as well and asked them for guidance as well. And so we're here tonight as our final step before we submit this to the state of Minnesota tomorrow upon your approval. And you've seen some of these goals before. Last year we did have to present the goals to you, but we had no data. So you're seeing the same goals because the state asked us to report on those old goals with as current data as we could. So it may feel a little bit disconnected because it is. So nonetheless, our goal 1 is tied to early learning, and we look to Mary Bartuszczyk and her department to guide this area. You'll see the 3 goals there that were provided, and 2 of the goals were met, including school safety, along with a collaboration of a booklet of kindergarten entry expectations. So those 2 areas were met, and the screening goal was not met, and a lot of that was due to we had to shut down for a period of time where nobody was allowed in. And so that actually resulted in older children being screened because of that. Goal 2 is tied to literacy. And again, we get the goals from the state, and then as a school district, we create our own specific goals underneath those benchmarks. So as a team, we decided to look at our MCA scores along with FAST assessments. And so to clarify the difference, the MCA scores are our required state assessments that we have to take every year from the State Department that are created based on the Minnesota standards. And then students in grades 3 through 8, along with 10th graders, take the reading assessment. And then the FAST assessment is a nationally normed assessment that students in K through 8 take every year. And so with that assessment, we're able to actually measure growth because how the assessment was created, it's not based on necessarily the Minnesota state standards, but we really look at our national percentiles, and we're able to determine students growing from year to year. With an MCA, you're not able to determine the growth of a student because it's different benchmarks every year. And so that's why we include both assessments here. Though neither goal was met, we were still happy with the results that our students provided, given the circumstances of last year, of the different learning models, of the students who were out on quarantine. The state required us to offer MCAs to distance learning students, and so they had to actually come to the school board, to this room, and take their tests. And so because they're not able to take them off site, we had a high number of opt-outs. So a lot of reasons that we covered with you back in the fall when we provided our data review to you, but just wanting to reiterate, the majority of our MCA scores were still above the state average, so we were still very happy with that. Goal number 3 set by the state is to close all racial and economic achievement gaps between students. As a district, we looked at our free and reduced lunch cohort of kids along with our SPED cohort of kids. Those are our two biggest groups that we have. And so really in these two goals, we're looking at our proficiency along with the state average and wanting to grow our discrepancy with the state. And so again, we did not meet the goal, but the majority of our targets here we were still performing above the state average. Our goal number 4, all students are ready for career in college. In this goal, we utilize our 8th grade MCA scores. And a big piece of that is because we know that there's a lot that can happen from 3rd grade literacy to graduation, which is goal number 5 that I'll share with you next. And so it's a good way for us to kind of stop and reflect and look at our middle school education as well. Though the MCAs are just one data point, as a district we also look at our FAST data, both in reading and math, along with overall grades, attendance. There's many other data points that certainly help us determine as a district where we're at. But for the sake of the MCAs are required for all students to at least be offered the opportunity, this is what we're using. And so again, we did not meet our goals here. However, most areas we were above the state average. So we were happy with our performance given the circumstances of this past year. And then that last goal is that all students graduate. And we don't have our graduation rate from the state yet for 2021. We have an idea, but they haven't released the official results. So we provided the 2020 because that has been official, and so that was 96%. So goal tentatively not met based on preliminary data that we've done, but nonetheless, we are still well above the state average here. I believe it was 83 or 84% as a state. So we're still very happy with that graduation rate that we've been able to consistently have in recent years with our 4-year graduation rate. And so then just to reiterate, these were our district goals as a whole that we provided to you a couple of months ago. Again, looking at grade level benchmarks on classroom assessments, in addition to our FAST testing for grades K through 8 and MCA, grades 3 through 8, and then 10th and 11th graders, depending on the assessment. We're also continuing to watch our graduation rate at our high school. And then very important, our last goal, that students will feel welcome and respected. And we measure that with certain grade levels through various student surveys that our buildings offer. So that's kind of an overview of our goals. In addition to the goals, we also provide steps that we're taking as a district. There's a narrative that we also submit to the state that we will submit to them tomorrow. So what questions do you have?
Anyone? Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, what, besides these tools that you're using, is there any other tools that you're using to assess and benchmark our kids, I guess? I'd just be curious to see, because obviously these are hard to use old goals
Yep.
with new data.
Yep.
So what other, can you shed some other light on
Sure.
some other things you're
Yep,
doing?
at the high school level, we have the ACT that most students take. Not all students take, but most students do. So that's a data point that the high school is able to look at. In addition, at the elementary level, our K through 5 students all are given the Fontes and Pennell benchmark literacy assessment. They're given that 1 to 2 times, if not more times a year. That is something that we track over time as well. So similar to FAST, it's meant to track growth, and essentially you progress through the alphabet in terms of determining a reading level. And so our teachers use that as it's a really personalized instructional method because it's a one-on-one literacy assessment. And then our teams consistently across K-12 are working on common assessments within their department or within their grade level, depending on their circumstance. And so they are analyzing that data of the assessments that they're providing. And a lot of that is in part why we have the 90-minute late starts, so teams can collaborate. And there's other times that are built in to our teachers' schedules for them to analyze those common assessments that they have created. So we really do rely on a lot of our teacher-created assessments or assessments that are maybe provided by set curriculums too. But those daily assessments really drive what our teachers are doing on a daily basis. It helps to drive our elementary intervention system. It helps to help determine if a student may need a SPED referral, because really those daily pieces are really what's important, and that's typically where we can kind of really see where students are actually performing.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? If no further questions.
Right, so we're asking for approval of our presentation tonight, and then we will submit that for the state.
A motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Approval for the revised budget. Calendar. Budget. Just kidding.
Not me, thank goodness. Calendar. Let's not bring up calendar.
Okay, thank you and good evening. Let me get the presentation up here. Okay, at our December meeting, we always do a revised budget for the year as well as the truth and taxation, and I go through the revised budget first. First of all, just to note that we have more detail on the budget summary. In the past, I haven't delineated out each different restricted revenue and expense that we receive because some are just in and out. Examples are career tech, learning and development, basic skills. It's money that we spend every year, and we always end up with a zero fund balance at the end. But I thought it would be helpful for everybody to see that there are more restricted funds than just the ones I have been reporting on. It also purifies that unassigned fund balance, although it does take into account, that fund balance percentage does take into account the transfers out of the unassigned fund balance to the restricted accounts to make up for some of those programs where we don't get enough revenue to cover our expenses, such as career tech. This year we've got, in career tech, just as an example, we have revenue of $209,000, but expenditures of $700,000. It's not meant to cover all the, all the costs of the program, so we do transfer money into that fund to make it balanced, so we don't come up with a negative fund balance. So that is just a little bit of a change in how I'm doing things. First, just want to talk about the general fund revenue and some of the changes since we approved it in June. The gen ed revenue, we used 1% for preliminary, and the actual was 2%, and that resulted in some more revenue. We also adjusted some of the enrollment numbers, obviously. We adjusted those down when we did the enrollment projections in November. We just adjusted them down somewhat, not a great deal, but a little bit. I decreased the interest revenue because of such low interest rates. Now, I did just see in the news clippings that, or I don't think it was a news clipping, somewhere that the Fed is expecting to increase interest rates soon. So that might help, but right now, we almost have to pay someone to keep our money. So I don't know when that will change, but it's pretty bad. We also decreased state aid for Indian Ed and LTFM. This is mainly due to some prior year adjustments due to enrollment as well as actual expenditures on the Indian Ed revenue. We increased the federal grants by $81,500. The detail, I'll share some detail with you on that in a few minutes. And overall, the Fund 1 revenue increased by $161,000. Just to give you an idea then, our total general fund was $47,163,440, and it increased just slightly to $47,324,370. Going on to expenses, we did update the salary and benefits for our current staff. However, all contracts are unsettled except certified. So this is still somewhat of an estimate for all the uncertified. Certified obviously is the majority of our salary and benefits, but we still have some unknowns out there. Overall salaries did decrease by about $300,000. Several reasons for that. We have a couple of open positions that we can't fill. We have some staff that left that were filled in with lower paid staff and so forth. So it did decrease. We also, our benefits decreased by $200,000. Mainly that's because every year we come under budget so much for FICA. And so I really had Sheila do an analysis of why are we coming under budget so much? And really not all salary counts for FICA. And so we did kind of an estimate, so we lowered that down, so hopefully we come in closer to budget on benefits this year. Purchase services increased $650,000. Several reasons for that. The first are some additional LTFM projects. If it weren't for bad luck, we'd have no luck at all. For Craig Most, we had a high school water main break, middle school generator went out, high school water heater went out, and our sidewalks and parking lot repair came in over estimate. So we had some additional LTFM projects that surfaced so far this year. Utilities and insurance, due to price increases or anticipated price increases, electricity, gas, those kinds of things are increasing. I mentioned before we had a couple of unfilled positions. We have a 0.5 psych that we have not been able to fill. And so we're probably going to have to outsource that to an agency, and that's quite expensive, but we have to provide the services, so we have to have somebody. So we added $44,000 for that. Mental and chemical health increase. So chemical health, we typically employ that person directly. However, this year, the person left and we couldn't find someone to replace them. Again, one of those unfilled positions. So right now, Amy's been working with Scott County to find an additional mental health worker and a chemical health specialist that we can hire through the county. And that's about $50,000, and that we can actually use a federal grant for. The mental health needs of our students have increased so dramatically. We're hoping to find, Scott County hasn't found anybody yet, but we're hoping that they can find somebody. Southwest Metro Distance Learning Program fees. As you know, we are keeping our students that go to Southwest Metro Distance Learning as students, but then they're going to be billing us. It's a little bit up in the air right now, but the best I could, working with them and estimating, and I figure it's going to be at about $190,000 for those students to attend the distance learning program at Southwest Metro. And then custodial services, more positions that we cannot fill. And so we're having a cleaning company come into the CEC and the Aquatic Center to clean. And that, again, takes it out of salaries but puts it into purchase services. Supplies and materials increased about 51,000. Again, we have an increase in fuel prices that we're anticipating. And then we had some building allocation expenses that somehow got missed in the preliminary budget, but also some were budgeted for in equipment that were moved to supplies and materials, so it's a combination. Equipment decreased 199,000. We adjusted our lease principal payments to actual, which resulted in a decrease in the budget. And then again, some expenses were moved to supplies and materials. Other expenses increased $37,600. That's primarily the TRA and PERA expense we're required to report per GASB, and that is offset by revenue. Overall expenses stayed very stable. Again, the main changes from the preliminary budget, the total expenses, again, stayed very similar, 49.6 million about. So that did not change overall very much. This is just a quick picture for the first set of graphs. So that is the total general fund budget, and the second is the unassigned fund balance. And we should end up the year at about 10% of fund balance, and this chart really shows you the history of our fund balance, our total and our unassigned. And you can see 2021 did decrease, as was reported by the auditors in October. This revised budget puts our unassigned fund balance at 4.5 million, with our goal being about 3.6 million. So we'll have a little bit of a, and again, that 4.5 million is a worst case scenario. And then, so we have some cushion there for budgeting next year. I'm just reporting on a few select reserved accounts. Staff development will build that fund balance slightly. LTFM, with those additional projects that came up, we are going to be spending that down to probably zero. That is not a problem. You could even go negative in LTFM if needed. Expect to go about zero, but we get more revenue every single year. So, and I think everything that has gone wrong did go wrong, hopefully, and next year will be a better year. Operating capital will be decreasing from almost 700,000 to 533. Gifted and talented would be decreasing. That's a planned spend down of that reserve account. Safe schools, again, we're spending down, and those were projects. We have the camera project and a few other safe schools projects that were planned as a part of the original budget. And then severance stays at 178. One comment I want to make on the severance is we don't have to have that much. Years ago when I first came, we didn't have anything put away in our savings account for severance. And so we built that up slowly. And so obviously, if we are going to be doing budget adjustments at all this spring, we can take some money from there. That is put away kind of in a savings account. And so that is an option too, because it's not being spent very quickly. Here's the detail on the federal grants. I was just showing Ray, I left it over there. There's a flow chart on the federal grants that will about make your head spin. Yeah, so this is the little flow chart of all the federal grants that we have, that districts have available, and they're all color-coded, and it's amazing how many different buckets that could be created for money. I want to go over the bottom part first. These are grants used prior to this fiscal year. This does not include our coronavirus relief funds of $1 million that had to be spent on additional costs not already in our budget last year. PPE, cleaning supplies, custodians, extra reserve subs, childcare, those kinds of things were spent with that $1 million. That is not included here. But in 1920, we spent about $20,000 in a federal grant, and that was Craig trying to get an advance step on getting some PPE and cleaning supplies, because at that point in time, in June of 2020, everybody was scrambling to try to get what they needed. Last year was about $500,000 in the various sources, and this year it's about $900,000, and I'll go through some of the detail here. Finance Code 171, that's our enrollment loss. Governor Walz announced that, I want to say in September, right before our audit. And we're getting $185,000. And unfortunately, we can't spend that on anything. We have to spend it on either mental health or learning loss. You'd think because it's as a result of enrollment loss, which is loss of revenue, we could spend it on other things, but it has to be spent on that. So right now I've got that 50,000 targeted for this year for that mental health and chemical health, and the rest could be spent next year for some of our interventionist costs. We also have 3 different special ed funds that we got. The Finance Code 140 is just K-12 special ed. We're actually this year going to be funding one of our additional special ed teachers as well as a reserve para sub. We have a hard time finding special ed paras. And the remainder will be used next year again to fund a special education teacher another year. Preschool and early intervening services, we'll spend that this year just on current staffing. Preschool special ed, we have a lot of evals to do. They're delayed from last year, and so we're going to be charging back some more psych time to that preschool, those preschool kiddos. Then we have the ESSER 80% funds. Those are the funds we can pretty much spend on anything. We're spending it on interventionists, capital leases, masks, a targeted services coordinator, just some hot spots. There's a few miscellaneous things, but that's basically what we're spending that on. And then we have that ESSER 20%, the Finance Code 161. This is the one that districts are struggling with. It cannot be spent on any services during the school day. It has to be spent outside of the school day. And what they really want you to do is they want you to either expand the number of school days or increase the length of your school day. That really isn't an option for us. I mean, we struggle to find teachers that will work targeted services, some of the, extended hours. So after doing some networking, I did some networking, Mara did some networking. What we decided to do, at least this year, was to offer, we're waiting for approval, we should have approval on this in early January, is to do some tutoring, one-to-one tutoring for students in the evenings, on the weekends our staff will do that. It could be either academic or social emotional with social workers. And then do some summer enrichment programming for free in June, and we'll probably do some in July and August as well. Again, that academic and social emotional needs that kids have to try to make that up. Finance Code 169, that's ESSER 5%. We just found out about this about a month and a half ago. Didn't even know this was coming. $366,000, again, we'll spend that next year. I'm trying to spread it out a little bit. That helps the budget. There's only so many things we can spend it on. So spend that next year on interventionists. And then we received actually last summer $105,000 just to spend on summer mental health. And there's really no way we can spend that just on summer mental health. Not even possible. We spent a little bit last year. We hope to spend quite a bit in June. And we probably will not spend all of that. So that's a summary of the federal grants to date and what we're doing with them. Any questions on the general fund or the federal grants before I move on to the other funds? Okay, nutrition services. This fund balance will increase pretty substantially just because we're on the seamless summer option for our meal programs this year. And the federal and state reimbursement rate is higher than our normal meal prices. So our reimbursement rate is higher. And we also have actually some supply chain issues. So it's kind of interesting. We also are anticipating a la carte sales will be higher because we have all year in-person learning, but of course our costs increase as well because we're here all year in in-person learning. Fund 4, community services, we did end up last year with a community ed fund balance of a minus $350,000, if you recall from our audit report in October. But overall, our community services fund balance was positive, and really our goal is to decrease that negative fund balance in community education. And this budget shows a year-end fund balance of minus $129,000, so we're going to make a big dent in that. School readiness shows a planned declining fund balance due to providing some transportation to kids that don't have transportation to preschool, and ECFE is staying stable. So this just shows the nutrition services and community services fund, with that community services fund reaching a positive $200,000 at the end of this year. Our Fund 7 debt service, net fund balance increase of $70,000. This is meant to stay very stable while we pay our debt service payments. Our next steps, of course, starting the financial planning immediately. Actually, I have a meeting tomorrow in the morning to start our financial planning. Budget planning starts in January, February. We need to start working on settling non-certified contracts. And then we need to, at some point, start our operating levy renewal planning. Coming up. So any questions at all before we look at approving the budget? Oh, okay. No? Okay.
I have a motion.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor to approve the 2021-22 revised budget?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. All right, Sandy, truth and taxation.
Okay, truth and taxation. So tonight is the big night. We're required to have a public meeting on the proposed levy, and it must include the discussion of taxes payable for the next calendar year, 2022, a discussion of the current year budget, which we just did, and an opportunity for public comment. First of all, just to recap our revenue sources for our general fund. You can see in the general fund, 81% of our revenue comes from state sources and only 13% comes from property taxes. So this is not the majority of our revenue in our general fund. However, if you look at all funds, it's a much bigger portion because our debt service is quite large with all of our building projects and LTFM projects. So it actually is 22.6% of the revenue for all of our funds is attributable to property taxes. I'll go through this quickly, but I like to go through it in case someone at home is watching. There's several different types of levies. We have voter-approved levies. We have operating levies and bonds for building projects. Then we have some that are based on school board decisions that are optional to do. And then we have some that are levies that are set by state formula based on age of buildings and ADMs and so forth, and statutory language. The levies in red are equalized levies, and so what an equalization formula does, it takes the total district revenue, and then that is paid partially in state aid and partially in a local levy based on a formula set by the legislature. And the goal is to equalize the impact to local property tax owners based on market value per student. So you have some districts that have huge commercial tax base, and it's much easier for them to pass an operating levy and building bond levies because it's a lower impact to taxpayers, and that's what this formula tries to equalize and provide some in-state aid. Excuse me. Just an overview here is our total levy is decreasing about 2% or $300,000 this year. Just to give a little bit more detail on that, the general fund, this is all the detail. It's also posted on our website, but just some high points. Our general fund is increasing 0.28% or about $10,000. We have some of our equalized levies, we're getting more in levy than state aid. We also have lower student counts, so they're kind of offsetting each other a little bit, but the total increase for those levies are about $97,000. Slightly lower OPEB expenses, that's post-employment benefits. Our reemployment levy still hasn't been, our costs still haven't been figured out from COVID, but I'm going back to the pre-COVID level. So that's a decrease from last year. LTFM and Safe Schools, lower just because of lower student counts. Building land leases staying stable. Southwest Metro intermediate levies went down slightly. And we have a little bit higher negative adjustments than the prior year. And just as a reminder, we will be seeing larger negative adjustments next year when adjustments are made for 2021, because those are always made in arrears. Community Service Fund is going down $25,700 or 6%. We had a slightly decreased population. The state demographer is doing our population now as opposed to us calculating it and estimating it. So we had a slight decrease, as well as a decrease in birth to 3 census just because of the pandemic. And the major change there is a smaller prior year adjustment for school-age childcare, a levy adjustment. Debt service fund is going down almost $300,000 or 3.5%. We have a lower debt schedule due to refunding those bonds last year, but we also had an increase in levy and lower in state aid, so they kind of offset each other, but we have a larger reduction for debt excess than we normally have. And just as a reminder for the public, is the tax credit for ag land and bond referendum is increasing again this year. It started out at 2019 at 40%, and 2022 it's going to be 60%. And it goes up still to 70% the following year. So that helps the tax burden on ag land. So again, our final levy of $14,274,304, decreasing 2.1%. This just shows you the purple line is the total levy. You can see how it's changed over the last 5 years. Before I mention they're voter approved and board approved, 60% of our levy is voter approved, and that's because of, again, of our debt schedule and our operating levy. Levy by fund, the largest portion is debt service, with only 3% being community services. Estimated tax impact, so even though our levy went down slightly, our net tax capacity increased 4.8%, as well as our referendum market value. So there's a more value to spread our levy on. And so if district-wide, if the property value did not change, which is very unlikely, the levy would decrease an average of $96 a year or 7.5%. But if we look at an average home value in the city of New Prague of $240, again, if the home value did not change, it would be 7.5% decrease or $57 a year. If it went up by 2.5%, it would decrease 5.3% or $40 a year. And if home value increased 7.5%, it would go up $5 a year or up 0.6%. And that is all based on the Scott County what if that they send me every year. The budget information as is presented earlier, and the next steps would be the public has an opportunity to give feedback. You will certify the final levy tonight, and the county auditor then calculates the final bills, and then they start collecting those in April and May. And we get our first settlement in June sometime. Just asking this board certify the levy as presented, and just want to know if there's any questions or comments from the public.
Make a motion to approve the board's levy.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
One more.
Yeah, the master agreement for teachers is settled. The new contract was attached in the board docs. There is another MOU for extracurricular schedule review. We have a process set up for that. We've been trying to get to that the last couple of contract cycles, and COVID got in the way last time, and discretionary leave was a higher priority, and so we want to make sure we complete that before the next round of negotiations. But if anybody has any questions on that.
No? Okay. A motion to approve the master agreement for the 2021-23 and the ECA MOU with the New Prague Education, Minnesota.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0. All right, so with that, I will ask for a motion to go into closed session for purpose of negotiation.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.